Hello, everyone. Greetings. Welcome to Zoho Cliq's webinar on the topic, how to manage a remote team. When you heard this particular webinar topic name, you would have thought how it's going to be beneficial for me. And this 5-point here will help you in understanding what is the key takeaway from this webinar. It is definitely going to be useful for team managers as you handle a remote team. And if you are part of a remote team, you can actually relate with some of the concepts that are going to be shared in this webinar. The third point is teams in chaos. If you're in a problematic situation in your team, if you're handling conflicts in your team, if you're trying to find out answers to resolve those problems, this webinar will be useful. This is not a product webinar. I'm not going to talk about features of Zoho Cliq here. It's going to be from the organizational behavioral angle, and it's going to be a managerial psychological topic. But definitely, as Zoho Cliq users, if you have used certain features, you can probably understand where some of these features might be useful when you listen to this webinar. The agenda for the day. It's going to be a 4-point agenda. I'm going to start with the classic rhetoric statistics angle. If you're not a fan of statistics, please bear with me. It's going to be a couple of slides where I'm going to pull in some challenges based on statistics from research institutions that were released quite recently. The second point, I'm going to talk about how, as managers, we can manage people, then definitely about work, and finally, a little bit of soft sell on Zoho Cliq, but I'm not going to sell Zoho Cliq. I'm going to talk about features that's going to be really useful for you to handle remote workers. Let me start with the first point, the challenges in remote work. The state of remote work from Buffer made this announcement recently. Almost everyone working in an office want to experience remote work at least once in a month or once a week. Even though you might not have a remote work functionality or remote work possibility because of reasons like you might have to come to work daily, the report says almost every worker wants to have this particular remote working facility at least once a week. Our lab report states that the last couple of years, pre to post-pandemic conversion transition, 16% of companies have, across the globe have become fully remote. And it can be on mute. And 63% offer a hybrid or remote first option. So 69% remote workers reported of increased burnout from digital communication tools. Every other SaaS company available in the market are coming up with remote work functionalities. And because of this, almost every one of us are in front of our computers or our digital equipment. So 7 out of 10 employees report of burnout from digital communication tools. Almost every 50% of remote workers say that it's harder to feel connected to co-workers because we don't have that face-to-face communication because of remote work. Security risk is one issue always when it comes to remote work. We do not know what our fellow team workers are sharing, what they're downloading, what they are screen sharing with, and where these data are going towards. And 40% of remote workers say that they struggle to unplug at the end of the day. For example, I log in from home at 9 o'clock in the morning. I work for a couple of hours from the comfort of my home. Then I start to office, drive to office at around 11:30 types. I work from office till evening 6 o'clock. I come back from office, spend time with my family. Then I again log in at 10 p.m. and work till 12 p.m. And I connect with the global workforce. Not a healthy work style, yes, but this is the way I work. And my colleagues here, Santan Lakshmi is here, Zishan is here. Zishan works from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. every day from office. Lakshmi starts at 9 o'clock from home and she connects from office again. She goes and works till 11 o'clock in the night. So everyone have different work styles. especially what we've seen in the last 2 3 years, is most of us struggle to unplug at the end of the day. It's not a 9 to 6 job anymore. The it's always a struggle, and that's evident from the stats also. And 50% of remote workers feel lonely at least once per week. So these are some of the challenges in remote work, which has resulted in these three downsides. One is miscommunication and less collaboration, and no accountability and non-adherence to timelines. That's one major downside of remote work, because we are less connected with people. When people are not focused at work, the accountability factor kicks in. And fatigue and mental health issues also come into play. When I read a lot of posts on LinkedIn from a lot of people, sometimes I doubt whether they have really mental health issues, because it's become a buzzword. Everybody wants to write on hashtag mental health. But when I work with people, when I talk with people, when I have discussions with my team members, I understand the reality of this issue, that fatigue and mental health issues is a reality. Because of this reasons, a lot of people in remote work environment are actually going through stress and less job satisfaction. That brings me to the core area of today's webinar, the objectives of remote managers. As a manager managing a team, what are the two main things that we could look at and address? One is people management. The second is work management. There are two schools of thoughts. The age-old school of thought is you don't manage people, because people invariably are matured enough to handle themselves. You don't trouble them. You just give them work. You just operationally guide them. You just get them to do work, and that's enough. So the first school of thought is all about work management only. You don't worry about people because they can take care of themselves. But what you have found out from all these stats is, yes, we do have to take care of people also. We have to manage their emotional well-being at least, or provide a safe environment for them to work with, so that we can actually have a very good working environment. So I'll be talking about a few features, a few topics on people management and on work management too. Starting with people management, the first thing that a manager has to do when we work with a team is build trust. It can be applicable for relationships also, because unless and until our co-workers trust us, it is going to be really tough for them to work with us. And that is the foundation of collaboration. Once our team members know that they can trust us, they'll go to any extent to work with us. We have to understand the work style of our co-workers. Some of us like to work as individual contributors. Some of us like to be like to work with team, talking with team. Some of us work listening to music. Some of us like to totally work remotely. Some of us like to work in conference rooms or in cubicles. So it's really important for a team manager to understand the work style adopted by different people to actually work with them better. Listening. There is this popular quote which goes on like this, that many people listen to just respond and not to understand. If we are managers who belong to this category, I think it's better we change our attitude and start listening to understand where our team workers are coming from. Then comes the autocratic leadership and the participative leadership. Sometimes, yes, we have to be autocratic, but it's better to lead with example and be participative with our team workers and accept mistakes and be open to change. Once people who report to us see that we accept mistakes and we take responsibilities for our actions too, the trust factor actually goes high and they get comfortable with us. And that's the first thing that's really important in managing people. The second point that I want to stress on is an important factor I've just stated here. We, in 1 second, that our human brain receives 10 million pieces of information. And as you are listening to this webinar, every second you're listening, are getting at least 10 million pieces of information, and only 50 of those pieces of information are consciously processed by us. That means almost every decision that we make are done unconsciously. In other words, there is an unconscious bias that is working, that is guiding us in us taking decisions. So it is really important for us to understand what kind of unconscious bias that drives us. So before I get into the different biases, I want to talk about we have these few things here. One is the opportunity and growth plan that we give to our team members. It is really bad to work in ambiguous environment. So every people who report to us should know the opportunity that they get for working for us, and also the growth trajectory that they will be actually expecting as they work with us. We should definitely reward them if they work well. Appreciation should always be done in public, not just one-on-one, because it's definitely a boost for anyone when they feel appreciated. And correction will always go for this particular principle of correcting in private, not in public, not in front of everyone to show our, we definitely as managers, we definitely are the power. So it's a blatant misuse if we just start shouting or correcting people in public. So appreciate in public and correct in private. And let's avoid no siloed conversations, one-on-one conversations, especially when it comes to working with a team. So if the team members find out that we are not biased, if they have trust on us, and if there is equality and transparency set in the team is going to work really well in a remote setting. I touched on the bias that when I said 99% of the decision that we take are taken unconsciously. These are the biases that rule us. The first is the affinity bias. Affinity bias is nothing but commonality bias. If we find certain features common between us and another person, I start liking that person. For example, I'm a Roger Federer tennis fan. I like the Brazilian football team. So if I meet anyone who's a fan of Romario or a phenomenal Ronaldo or Ronaldinho or even Neymar Jr. for that matter, I automatically form an affinity towards that particular person. So if I have affinity bias in me, I'll start having relationships with people, and this bias is going to guide me, even if that person is not going to work, even if that person is highly toxic. This affinity bias that I have formulated and formed between the other person is going to drive me in liking that person so much that I'll actually not see any of the negatives that person has. So we have to see if this unconscious bias, affinity bias, is driving us to take a decision when we relate with people. Second is halo bias. It's basically the first impression. We form opinions about people by the way they dress, from the language, with the tone that they speak in. You might have formed opinions about me from the way I speak, from the way I have my non-verbal communication. So you might not know anything about me. You just would have seen my name. You just would have seen that I handle the marketing team here, and you would have gone through a couple of presentation slides that I'm going through, and already you would have formed an opinion about me based on halo bias that you have. Similarly, we also form halo bias with our team members when we meet them, and sometimes even if they are different from whatever we perceived about them, we still continue with that first halo bias. And that brings us to the third bias, confirmation bias. That is, we try to find out different data points that relate to that particular halo bias we created. For example, let's say if we have this ideology that a person with curly hair is a person who has a lot of secrets. If that is the bias with which we have, and if there is a person in our team who has curly hair, and if we have a bias saying that, okay, this person is going to have a lot of secrets, so I'm not going to trust this person. And when it comes to confirmation bias, if there are 9 data points that act in that person's favor, and even if that person is really good, if the person is really transparent, if you can really trust that person, if I'm guided by confirmation bias, I will always go for that one data point which will confirm to the halo bias that I had, that curly haired people have secretive ideologies. So halo bias itself, if you're driven by halo bias, it's better to take a pause and find out whether the initial intuition is right. But if you're driven by confirmation bias, It's really important that we change our behavioral mindset. Otherwise, if as managers we are driven by confirmation bias, it's really hard for us to change our attitude with the team members that we work with. Perception bias, again, we make perceptions based on the race a particular person belongs to, or a religion that a particular person belongs to, or our bias also is perceived based on social economic standard of people. So these are the different biases which guides us in taking unconscious decisions. All these biases that I've listed here, these four biases are decent enough or good enough because it's these biases are helping us take decisions. But the fifth bias, mob bias, is a dangerous bias because this is a mob mentality bias. This is not governed by our own decision making skill. This is governed by external factors. If we are having a tea conversation with a couple of people, if two people are going to talk negatively or have start shadow communication or backstab about another person, if they have control over us, we are going to be guided by their thoughts. And if our unconscious bias has a majority percentage of mob bias decision making skill, it's highly dangerous because we will not have self decision making skills. So it is totally important for us to understand what kind of biases that drive us and to take measures to control that behavior so that we make consciously better decisions at work. That comes us to the next point in people management, that is handling conflicts. There are two ways of handling conflicts. There are two types of communications. There are two types of people. One, people who have subjective ideologies, people who converse on based on subjective levels. Second, people who are objective, who go by facts and figures, who have logical reasoning skills, who base their data points based on analytical ideologies. If these two groups of people have arguments, we'll never find a common ground because one person is going to talk about emotionally guided by emotions, one person is going to be guided by data points and facts and figures. So when conflicts arise in such a situation, as a team manager, we have to find out a way in moving people from their subjective idea point towards objective thinking process. And while doing so, it of course we might hurt people because one will be right, one will be wrong. In certain cases, both the people will be right, but they will be coming from different perspective angles. So team managers should be really careful in handling conflicts and just not manage them, just not sweep them under the carpet, but go to the root of the issue and resolve them so that we actually make a team a better place for people to work with. That brings me to the second point, work management. Yes, the foundation with people is set, trust is developed. We have kind of have control over the biases that we have. We have managed all the conflicts in the team. Now we can work with them if exactly we give them the roles and the responsibilities, and if we tell them you are the point of contact for this particular role. If the team members exactly know what the roles, what they have to do, they can start working on their own. We have a planning meetings every week, yes, but we on Mondays. When I talk about I'm talking about the Cliq marketing team. We meet on Monday mornings to drive away the Monday morning blues. We have a quick huddle on Monday mornings, just 15 minutes, and we don't disturb any of them throughout the week. So when roles, responsibilities, and all the work items that each and every person has to do is known to every one of them, the planning meeting is more than enough for everyone to actually work, plan, and work throughout the week. Micromanagement, this is one subject that we all struggle with. Definitely, if you manage a team, we have to definitely know whether they work well or not, especially in a remote work environment. I might work from office. I might not know whether my colleague Lakshmi, I'm using Lakshmi as example, whether if she's working from home. I do not know whether she's working from home or whether she's resting. But I definitely have to know whether she's working or not. But I also have to make sure that I don't micromanage her. I don't behave like a toxic manager to her. So we have to take that balance in understanding how we do this particular exercise without coming across as a micromanager, and definitely not be a bottleneck. Uh, some of us have the approval power, even though people who report to us write a lot of documents, write a lot of code, send a lot of procedural procurement items outside. If there is a way in which we have to give approval, we have to make sure that all these things are done instantly so that they work easily and better. Most employees feel that their managers are bottlenecks for their work, because every work finally somewhere it's kind of at the bottleneck because the manager doesn't approve their work. Second is collaboration with your teammates. So I'm slowly starting to bring in a couple of screenshots from Zoho Cliq. If you have used Zoho Cliq, you would have known. If you have used Zoho Cliq for your mobile device, on your mobile device, you would have known that you can actually start a meeting on your mobile. You can start a meeting from from your laptop. And if you're going to take a walk, you can actually transfer your call to your mobile, and you can actually take a walk. You can come back to your seat, and you can actually transfer the call back to your laptop. So Cliq is available in all digital devices, be it your wearables, be it your Android CarPlay, be it your mobile phones, be it your laptop. So if you're working from the comfort of your home, if you're working from office, you can collaborate and seamlessly through some of the features that are available in Zoho Cliq. We follow this principle, or when I say we, I just have to reword it. I follow this principle, V80, when I collaborate with people, especially while working remotely. Video first, audio second, text third. It's usually the other way around, because we have this formal ideology about disturbing people. Sometimes when we talk with our colleagues, we send them a mail saying, can we connect on a particular day? I'm talking about internal communication here. So when we send a mail to them saying, like, can we connect at 10 o'clock? We set a meeting appointment. Then we go to an instant messenger and chat to them and say, can I call? And if they say yes, we then call. But what I've found is, like, when we have a video communication, visual communication, we actually understand what the other person is thinking, or actually understand from their nonverbal gestures whether they're actually liking the conversation that they're having with us or not. Second is the audio communication. If they're not well dressed, if they're not ready to be in front of the camera, yes, we can have an audio communication and take decisions. And text chats also is okay, but I have a strong belief that video and audio forms of communication help us in coming to conclusions, arriving at to conclusions at a faster pace. A lot of you might disagree with me on this, but this is something that I've personally tried and tested. It's been helpful for me. And it also depends on the work culture that you are part of. If you're not comfortable with video audio calls to start with, if you have a long process, then yeah, if you can definitely have chat conversations and collaborate with your teammates. When you talk about work, managing people at work, there are different work productivity techniques. One is a technique called the Pomodoro technique, which most of you might be knowing. That's a good technique if you work individually. If you're an individual contributor, very good technique. Elon Musk is known for his time blocking technique. When he blocks he divides the entire day into different blocks of time, and he blocks each of these time blocks for different work that he does. And the productivity technique that I'm going to share with you right now, most of you might be knowing. This is the ex-US President Eisenhower, and the matrix is named after him. So based on certain ideas that he formulated, like, this matrix is formulated. So you have two axes here, the less important and the important on the y-axis, and based on the urgency of the work that you do, all the work that you have can be put under these four quadrants in these two axes: importance and the urgency. So if you see the first quadrant here at the top, do immediately. The most important work and the most urgent work comes here. And when I talk about these four quadrants, I'll definitely talk about some of the features in Cliq that will be definitely useful for you. The first feature is all the work, the items that you can do immediately on a Monday morning itself. urgent ones you can do with the help of some of these features. Status is yes. If you're an active user of all these statuses available in Click, you have definitely known how to use active, busy, or away status in computer. And right now, as we speak, as I'm taking this webinar, I've just put myself on DND mode on Click so that all my colleagues know that I'm occupied in a meeting. We have the call facility, voice call, video call facility. We can go on meetings and have meetings with 1,000 users in one channel. So, and we can also share screen, get on a whiteboard discussion forum. So we have a lot of options available here in Click, which helps you to do your work urgently. That is, do immediately. The second one is work that is less urgent, but that's really important. So that you don't have to do it immediately, but you definitely have to do it. These are the kind of work that you can schedule it so that you finish your important works on Mondays, Tuesdays, and you can take this later on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So reminders is one of the features that from Zoho Cliq, which you can use to remind yourself, okay, at the middle of the week, you have to come back to this work. There are slash commands you can use to send reminders, and you can also schedule bots. We have a lot of bots in our channels that we use. Certain bots that will help us to prepare our sheets, team work deliverable items. There are certain bots that will help us to gather for unwind sessions. So less urgent work, definitely you can schedule them. The third quadrant is delegate. It is really urgent. You have to do it on the first day of the week itself, but it's not that important. You can definitely delegate. When you are concentrating on urgent work here, you can actually delegate this less important work to your team members, to your teammates, so that they can actually work better. That is this at mention feature that's available in Zoho Cliq that you can use to assign this feature to others. Or you definitely can use meetings, get on a recording, record the call, take all the action items, and you can delegate work to them. Definitely you can set reminders for others also, just like how you set reminders for yourself in the previous example. You can set reminders for others. Finally, we come to the last point, and that's delete. It might sound like a very simple point, but what we found out is, consider that's a 40-hour work week, 8 hours and 5 days. If you think that you are spending so much time on this quadrant, what we have found out is from stats that employees waste almost 50% of their work week every week by doing unnecessary work. So if it's 40 hours a week, so you almost spend 21.8 hours a week by doing unnecessary work, because you are working on the fourth quadrant, which should not be worked on that particular week. So if as a team, if you could collaborate together, if you can plan well, if you can use this quadrant well, you can actually work and collaborate in a wonderful manner. And that's something that we use internally that's helped us a lot. So that's something that I wanted to share in this webinar. Coming to the last point, the fourth point in the agenda, Zoho Cliq for remote work. If you are an ardent Zoho Cliq user, you would have seen this particular screen. This is one screen that we always open up in the beginning of the day. We check into work using this button, remote work button, and we check out of work through this button here. So all our work that happens between our morning check-in time and evening checkout time happens between this particular area. I exactly know who is at work here, who is away, who is checked in remotely from home, and who is having a meeting, and who has scheduled a meeting here. So based on this, it's easier for me to collaborate with everyone. So if you're not using Zoho Cliq so far, if you're coming to this webinar from an invitation that you got through mail or from your friends or your colleagues, if you want to use Zoho Cliq, try this feature. Download Zoho Cliq, try this feature. You'll definitely love it, because this is what most of our users have found this to be really beneficial.